Okay, we are still factoring difficult trinomials in this module. And if you're not a fan of the trial and error method, doing backwards FOIL, I have another approach to help you factor a difficult trinomial. It is called the AC method. Now, to do this method, you're going to have to commit to memorizing the steps. Okay, and there are 5 steps. So let's look at this at the PowerPoint. I have the same difficult trinomial, 3x squared minus 4x minus 7. Again, I'm calling it difficult because it has that leading coefficient of 3, and that changes up the game plan. I would love to factor out the 3, but I can't because there is no GCF at this trinomial expression. I can't divide the first term by 3 because I'd have to divide all the terms by 3, and that's not going to work. So another approach to factor this trinomial is to do what we call the AC method. Now, the first thing you have to know is the definition. A is the coefficient in front of x squared, and C is your constant. So if you look at your expression, it's in the correct descending order. A is your coefficient in front of x squared, so that's the number 3. C is your constant, that's the number 7. Don't worry about the signs right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the A, the 3, and the C, the 7, and multiply them together, and 3 times 7 is going to give you 21. Okay? What you're going to do is on the side of your paper, you're going to list all the factors of 21. Well, that's pretty simple. 21 is 1 times 21, and it's 3 times 7. All right, so we have 2 sets of factors. Again, we don't go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pick which ones we like better. What we do to decide on which factors we're going to use is we look at that middle term of that trinomial. I know that middle term is negative 4x, and I know to get that middle term, I want to subtract because there's a negative in front of this 7. So which factors are guaranteeing you to subtract to negative 4x? Would it be the 1 and 21? Could you subtract those factors and get a negative 4? Or could it be the 3 and the 7? Correct. It's the 3 and the 7. So now what I'm going to do with that 3 and 7 is I'm going to do a substitution. I'm going to replace that middle term, negative 4x, in the trinomial with how I would make it with the 3 and the 7. So what's about to happen, everybody, is we're going to take our trinomial that has 3 terms and make it a polynomial with 4 terms. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to leave the first term, 3x squared. Just going to bring it down. You're going to leave the last term, negative 7. You're going to bring it down. You are going to replace that middle term, negative 4x, with the 2 factors. And we're going to stick x's behind those factors. So we decided we're going to use the factors 3 and 7. And we know to make 3 and 7 subtract to be a negative 4, their signs would have to be different. And the sign would have to go to the larger. So I know the 3x is going to be positive, and I know the 7x is going to be negative. So if you look, what I've done is I've changed my trinomial, 3x squared minus 4x minus 7. I've rewritten it now with 4 terms. I left the 3x squared, the first term. I left the negative 7, the last term. But I've replaced the negative 4x with what makes it, which is a positive 3x and a minus 7x. So I kept the value of the expression. The expression is still the same, only now it has 4 terms. Now you're going to say, well, why would we do that? Why would we want 4 terms? Because, guys, what factoring rule did you learn that's with 4 terms? Grouping. Now you can do grouping. So I'll group the first 2 terms, the 3x squared plus 3x, and I'll group the last 2 terms, the negative 7x minus 7. I'll factor out what the terms have in common. So 3x squared plus 3x both have in common a 3x. I'll divide that out, and that will leave me with x plus 1. With the last 2 terms, negative 7x minus 7, I could factor divide out a negative 7, the GCF. That will also leave me with x plus 1. I know I did grouping correctly because what's inside the parentheses, the x plus 1 is the same, but I'm not done. I write what's the same, x plus 1, in a set of parentheses, and then I put what's left, 3x minus 7, in the other parentheses. If you look, that is the same expression we did when we factored the trinomial with the trial and error method, backwards FOIL. So again, this method called AC does always work. It just requires you to memorize the 5 steps. Okay, let's go to the whiteboard and try one with this. Thank you.